They say you can hear it before you see it. A low, droning hum, like a breath held too long underwater, vibrating through the empty night. I never believed in those old stories, the ones whispered at the backs of dusty cafes and passed around like ghost stories at campfires. Until the night I saw it with my own eyes. It was a little after midnight. I had missed the last scheduled train home after visiting a friend in the next town over. The station was almost deserted, just a handful of weary faces waiting for taxis that never seemed to arrive. I decided to wait it out. The air was thick, the kind that sticks to your skin and makes every breath feel like a chore. My phone was dead, and the only light came from flickering yellow station lamps. That's when I heard it, the hum. At first, I thought it was just my imagination, or the sound of some distant freight train passing on another line. But then the ground beneath my feet began to tremble ever so slightly, and I saw a headlight in the distance. A train was coming. The timetable board above me remained blank. No scheduled arrivals, no announcements, nothing. Just that growing hum and a single beam of light cutting through the thick mist that had somehow crept over the platform. Instinct told me to step back, and I did, retreating to the benches as the train pulled into the station without making a sound. No screech of brakes, no hiss of releasing steam. It just glided in, silent as death. It was old Carriage, battered and faded, its paint peeling in long strips. The windows were so grimy I couldn't see inside, but in the few clear patches, I thought I glimpsed silhouettes, people sitting perfectly still, their heads tilted at unnatural angles. My stomach twisted. Something was wrong. Still, curiosity gnawed at me. Maybe it was a forgotten train. Maybe a historical tour I hadn't heard of. I inched closer to the platform edge. The doors slid open with a sluggish groan, revealing an empty compartment dimly lit by flickering overhead bulbs. No conductor, no passengers stepping out. Just the gaping mouth of the carriage waiting. The air that poured from inside was ice cold, and it smelled like something damp and rotten had been sealed away for decades. My skin broke out in goosebumps, and every instinct screamed at me to run. But my legs refused to move. I stood there, breathing shallowly, heart pounding against my ribs like a trapped animal. Then, from deep within the carriage, I heard a faint whisper. At first, I thought it was the wind, but the words were too clear. They called my name. Not a mistake, not a coincidence. My name, spoken softly, like a lover's plea or a dying man's last breath. I stumbled backward, heart in my throat. As I did, the lights inside the carriage flickered violently, revealing brief flashes of movement. Hands pressed against the windows, faces twisted in silent screams. My body finally responded, and I turned, running as fast as I could through the station. But no matter how far I got, the hum followed me, vibrating through the ground, through the bones of the station itself. When I dared to look back, the train was gone. No sound, no trace. Just the empty, mist-shrouded platform and the feeling that something had seen me. Later, when I asked around, the old station master, a man with a face carved from old leather and hands that trembled like dying leaves, refused to meet my eyes. "You saw the night carriage," he said in a voice barely above a whisper. "You're lucky it didn't take you." I pressed him for answers, but he only shook his head. "Once it calls you, it don't forget," he said. "Next time, you won't get to run." I didn't believe him. I thought I had escaped whatever curse haunted that train. But some nights, when the mist rolls in heavy and the town falls silent, I swear I can hear that low, mournful hum again, growing closer. And every time, I wonder if this time it will stop for me. I tried to forget about that night. For weeks, I buried myself in work, filled my days with noise and people just to drown out the memory of that silent train gliding into the station. But late at night, when the world grew quiet, I could feel it creeping back into my thoughts. And worse, I started to realize I wasn't alone. It began with the dreams. I would find myself standing on the platform again, the cold mist swirling around my feet, and that low hum vibrating in my chest. In every dream, the train would appear. But this time, the doors didn't wait. They snapped open like jaws, and shadowy figures would start pouring out, reaching for me with broken fingers and eyeless faces. I always woke up gasping, drenched in sweat, the sound of a distant whistle still ringing in my ears. He told me about the others, people who had encountered the night carriage over the years. A young woman named Claire, who had been found days later in an abandoned rail yard, eyes wide open but completely catatonic, whispering about faces in the glass. A maintenance worker who vanished without a trace, last seen muttering about the train that won't stop. An entire group of teenagers who had dared each other to board it. Only one came back, and he never spoke a word again before he hung himself in his parents' attic. The station master's hands shook as he dug out a battered notebook from his drawer. In it were names, dates, sightings, dozens of them, going back nearly a century. Every story different in the details, but the same in one chilling truth. Once you encountered the night carriage, it marked you. They come for you, he said, voice barely a whisper now. Some quick, some slow, but they all hear it eventually. I didn't want to believe it. I told myself it was just ghost stories, urban legends stitched together over time, until it happened again. One night, I was walking home from a late shift when I heard the hum. This time, it wasn't at the station. It was right there, behind me, down the empty suburban street. I turned, half expecting to see nothing, half hoping I was losing my mind. But there it was, rolling silently down the street, as if the asphalt had become steel rails. The same battered carriages, the same grimy windows. Only now, I could clearly see the passengers, twisted faces, slack mouths, dead eyes, and every single one of them was staring at me. I ran. I didn't look back. I didn't dare. For days after, I locked myself inside my apartment, curtains drawn, phone turned off, but the world outside grew stranger. I'd see reflections in my windows, images of train tracks running through my living room. I'd hear the distant clatter of wheels on rails echoing through my walls. People started noticing too. Friends said I looked different, hollowed out, like something was draining the life out of me. It was around that time I found the online forum, a hidden thread on a conspiracy site, buried deep under layers of old posts. There were others there, people who had seen the night carriage, people who were trying to survive it. Most of them had already gone silent, their accounts abandoned, their last messages frantic pleas for help. But there was one survivor, a man named Marcus, who claimed he had boarded the train and lived to tell the tale. I messaged him, desperate for answers. Days passed before he responded, and when he did, it was only a single sentence. You can't outrun it. You have to face it. No explanation, no advice. Just that. I didn't know what it meant until the third encounter. I was asleep when I heard it, the hum vibrating through my mattress, the cold mist seeping in under my door. I woke to find my bedroom bathed in pale light, like a station platform under a dying sun. Standing at the foot of my bed was a conductor, his uniform blackened and moth-eaten, his face obscured by shadow. In his gloved hand, he held out a ticket, old, yellowed, with my name printed neatly across it. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. The message was clear. It was time. I should have screamed. I should have run. But instead I stood trembling and reached for the ticket. The moment my fingers brushed it, I was somewhere else. Standing once more on the platform, mist curling around my legs, the night carriage idling before me. The doors yawned open, and a staircase of cracked steps descended, inviting me in. And somewhere deep inside me, a voice whispered, "Face it." I don't remember stepping onto the train. One moment I was on the platform. The next, I was inside. The world outside disappeared, swallowed by a darkness thicker than anything I'd ever known. The carriage smelled of rust and damp earth. Rows of seats stretched into the gloom, and sitting in every seat was a figure, still and silent. They didn't move, didn't breathe. Only their eyes followed me as I staggered down the aisle, heart hammering in my chest. At the end of the carriage, a door stood ajar, leading into deeper shadows. I knew somehow that whatever waited beyond that door held the answer to everything. The train, the faces, the curse. But as I reached for the handle, the train lurched violently, throwing me against the wall. I heard the sound of hundreds of hands slapping against the windows, hundreds of mouths opening in a voiceless howl. I turned to run and woke up, sprawled across my bedroom floor, ticket still clutched in my hand. The mist was gone, the hum was gone, but something had changed. Something had been left behind, or maybe something had been taken. I thought maybe it was over, that I had survived what so many hadn't. But that was before the letters started arriving. Before I found train tracks burned into the wood of my front porch. Before I realized the night carriage never truly stops. It only waits. And someday soon, when the mist returns and the hum fills the air, I will have to board it again. This time, there might be no coming back. For a while, I lived in a strange half-existence. Days felt normal enough. Work, errands, casual conversations that felt increasingly hollow. But at night, the world around me would shift. I'd wake to the sound of faint knocking, like someone rapping gently against invisible glass. I started noticing fleeting reflections that didn't match reality. Glimpses of rusted metal, of skeletal passengers staring back from mirrors, their mouths moving soundlessly. I told myself I was just haunted by trauma, that maybe if I stayed grounded, ignored the signs, it would all fade. But deep down, I knew the night carriage was patient. It wasn't done with me yet. It happened one evening, just as the sun dipped below the horizon and the sky bruised into a deep purple. I was walking home, crossing an old pedestrian bridge that overlooked a maze of abandoned rail tracks. As I reached the center of the bridge, I saw it, far below, cutting through the tangled weeds and broken stones. The familiar battered shape of the night carriage, gliding silently across tracks that should have been dead for decades. I froze, heart hammering. It wasn't a dream this time. It was real. And it was waiting. As if sensing my hesitation, the train screeched to a stop directly beneath me. From this height, I could see the roof, warped and dented, streaked with something that looked almost like dried blood. A hatch on the top creaked open with a metallic groan, and a ladder unfurled itself like a tongue, reaching up toward the bridge. A silent invitation. I should have run. I should have screamed. But something compelled me. Something stronger than fear. Maybe it was the understanding that I could never truly escape it. Maybe part of me needed to know why it had chosen me. With trembling hands, I climbed down. The moment my feet touched the roof, I felt it. A deep thrumming beneath the soles of my shoes, like the heartbeat of some ancient slumbering beast. I made my way to the hatch and peered inside. The interior was different this time. No rows of seats, no silent passengers. Instead, it was a corridor lined with mirrors stretching infinitely in both directions. Each mirror reflected not just me, but hundreds of versions of me. Twisted, broken, aged beyond recognition. Some looked back with empty eyes. Some banged their fists against the glass, mouthing desperate, silent warnings. And at the far end of the corridor, a door waited. The same door I had seen before, still ajar. I knew I had to go through it. The closer I walked, the heavier the air became, pressing against my chest like invisible hands. The smell of burning metal filled my lungs. The mirrors on either side began to shudder violently, cracks spider-webbing across their surfaces. I reached the door and pushed it open. Inside was my apartment. At first, I thought it was some cruel trick of the mind. But no. Every detail was perfect. The worn carpet, the dent in the wall from where I had dropped a shelf last year, the faint scent of my old cologne hanging in the air. Except, sitting on the couch was me. Or rather, something wearing my face. It turned and smiled. A grotesque, hollow parody of my own smile. Its eyes were vast and black, swirling like oil. Its skin sagged, as if it had been worn too long. It spoke in my voice, but the words twisted themselves into something wrong, something broken. Your seat is ready. Before I could move, it lunged at me. I stumbled back through the door, crashing into the corridor of mirrors. Each mirror exploded into shards, and from each fragment, a version of me spilled out, laughing, screaming, crying, pulling me down into a sea of shattered reflections. I don't remember what happened after that. I woke up here, not in my apartment, but inside the night carriage. It's always night here. The train never stops. The windows show impossible landscapes. Cities swallowed by forests, oceans of bone, skies that bleed darkness. There are others here too. Familiar faces I've seen in the dreams, the ones who disappeared before me. They sit silently, staring blankly ahead, their mouths stitched shut. I know now what the train is. It's not a vehicle. It's a collection. A moving prison of souls caught between life and whatever comes after. Once you see it, once you hear its call, you're already on board. You just don't realize it yet. And me? I'm just another passenger now, waiting, watching, until the night carriage stops for someone else. And when it does, I'll be the one standing at the door, offering them a ticket, just like someone once offered it to me.